hear any sound.
Me neither. Make sure our mic is on. Is the mic on?
Well, I guess maybe we can't hear ourselves, but they can. It's not going to repeat back the audio because that would make an echo anyway. So we're ready to go live. I think I'm going to go ahead and
My, it's cold here. Every little light extinguished. This is for Holden, to my unborn child. Inside my heart you're alive and you smile, and you're so beautiful when I hold you in my arms. Your eyes so bright and full, and I never let no harm come into your life. I bring you pain and strife, cause one day you have kids and a beautiful wife. But for right now it's time to be a kid. Nursery rhyme, go to swinging on the swings, just sliding on the slides. Kid nursery rhyme, go to swinging on the swings, just sliding on the slides. Your hair is dark and curly, man, it's just like your mom's. We love you very much, we just have us some problems, but don't let that bug you, you just go on and play. I watch you grow up, you're getting bigger each day. On your first day of school, we put you on the bus. As we watched you ride off, your mama cried and she fussed. You see that boy there? That's my only son. In him I'm very pleased, he's a wild one. Now that you're older, a rebellious phase, and you remind me of myself when I was at that age. I wish I hadn't done it, but I was hard-headed. I thought I was so funny, didn't know where I was headed. Right where I'd end up, it's what daddy always dreaded. Mama tried hard, but instead I only betted. So now you're all and had to leave you alone. Understand you were hurt, but you just made it worse. All them drugs ain't gon' help you cause you got your dad's curse. You robbed your own family, man, your grandmother's purse. Broke in, stole the jewelry and rented out the murk. After that episode, I thought that you'd have slowed, but you just kept running, couldn't stop, you had to go. You were drinking at night, you shouldn't have been on the road. You hit a big, deep puddle and you lost control. The person that you hit, you cost them their life. I know how that feels, cause there's always a price. In spite, don't know if I'd have raised you right. I might have been contributing to your plight. Don't know if I could have saved you if I spoke up in court. That's probably why it's best your mama chose to abort. Yeah. True story, man. Listen up.
All right, guys. That's a clip for Joshua. Y'all better hold on. This is going to be a good one. Can everybody hear us? We good to go?
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Yep.
I'm Joshua.
This is Joshua. Where can we put the comments on?
Got it. My bad. Boom. There we go.
There we go.
You can see them over there.
Okay, good.
A little bigger.
Little bigger over there. That's right. Okay, guys. Welcome to Raised on the Line, the show where real stories meet real redemption, where the broken, the bold, and the beautiful collide. I'm your host, Holly Watts, and today we're deep diving into a story that is as raw as it is redemptive. My guest, Joshua Clear Butler, grew up surrounded by addiction, a parent fighting demons that found their way into his own life. He lost his brother to suicide, His mother drank herself to death while he was serving a 15-year prison sentence. And inside those walls, in one of the darkest chapters of his life, Joshua started making moonshine, a small act of rebellion that turned into reflection. But that's not where his story ends, because in the same darkness, he found something brighter. Dude, he was stabbed, left with scars both seen and unseen, but instead of letting it break him, he gave his life to Christ and started walking a different line. Now he's using his voice, his music, and his faith to reach people who feel like redemption isn't possible, to show us that it is. So pour a cup, lean in close, and listen to a story of loss, faith, and second chances. This is Raised on the Line, and this is the story of Joshua Clear Butler. All right, guys. So thank y'all for coming and sharing your time with us tonight. Uh, I've been real excited about this interview. We were supposed to do it last Sunday, and everybody knows I got some kidney stones, so we had to put a break on it. But I truly respect Joshua. He is a very strong in his faith. He works with me, and none of this. Let me just say this: none of this would be happening if it wasn't for Josh, because he puts all the intros, the intermissions, the outros. He gets all of this set up for us so we can do this together. So thank you, Josh, for that.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's my honor to be here. It's fun. I enjoy helping you out to learn new things. It's some of it's new to me too, but
Right.
I have a desire to do something or learn something. I just go out there and figure it out, especially technology, that kind of stuff. I love it. So
Yeah, and if you think about it, Joshua was in prison for 15 years. He's not been out long, so he knows more in 12 months or so than most of us will learn in a lifetime. So that just tells you what kind of human he is. He's going to figure it out. So we're just going to go right into the first question. Joshua, for people who don't know you, how do you describe who you are today?
I am a fun-loving, happy, joyful, free person who follows Jesus wholeheartedly. Um, I work hard and I enjoy life now in a way that I didn't realize before was possible, and I just take it day by day and moment by moment and try to see things from the bright side wherever possible. I'm a regular person. I have my tough days too, but I feel like I'm more after completely giving my life to Christ. I feel like I'm better equipped to deal with certain things that before would be really difficult for me to
Mm,
assimilate or make it through and not get all bent out of shape.
right. You're a very steady person. Like, not much gets you out of character. We have a tough job at the resort, and we have a lot thrown at us. Uh, so I can say you take everything in, and everything you put out is respectful to others. I love you and admire you for that.
Thank you. That means a lot
Mm.
to hear you say that.
It inspires me. Like the way you speak with kindness, it makes me slow down and think about how I speak to others. So,
Amen.
um, what does Joshua Clear mean to you?
Well, I guess I could try to tell you the story real quick. I I loved rap music in my younger years, and I wanted to be a rapper. And I could write lyrics, and I had good tempo. So my one of I have multiple people that inspired me. When it comes to
Hmm.
rhyming, but at that time, this is a different Josh. At that
Right.
time, I really loved like Eminem and D12 and the whole like just crazy, like they would just rap about the craziest things. And so I tried to do that. So I picked for myself the stage name E. coli, like the hamburger,
Yeah.
the bacteria that grows
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
You get sick if you
Yeah.
have undercooked hamburgers. So late, and my brother chose, and we were always kind of a team when it came to making music. And later on, he chose the name Southern Sky, based on his love of Sky vodka. So I started to, it'd been a slow, like God been pecking at my heart for years, and I kind of realized I sort of got into the recovery thing. I wasn't fully committed I wasn't a transformed Christian at the time, but I was kind of flirting with and trying to get clean, and I'd get clean for a little while, and then I'd, go back and forth and whatever. But I sort of realized that my lyric content was changing as I was sort of changing, and I really started to struggle with some of the negative and violent, just terrible imagery that was prevalent in that kind of music. At least the kind that I like, the kind that I
Mm.
consume. That's not true everywhere, but I was into, if I'm going to do something, it's going to be the extreme version of it.
Right.
So you know, and that extremeness started to kind of turn me off after a while, and so I was thinking about, and also, the whole like white MC thing, and I was trying to come up with like a color reference that was kind of like interesting or unusual or new. So like I said, I'm not white or black. I'm clear. I'm transparent. I'm see
Yeah, that's
through.
cool.
So I came
Yeah.
up with the name Clear, and then also kind of like vibed off the sky. My brother was going by Sky, and I said Clear, Clear Sky. So
Mm.
it went together for kind of like a perfect combo because I always pictured him and me as like a tag team duo on the mic and him producing and whatnot. Kind of like, I know a big influence for us was Outkast and sort of,
Right.
Andre and Big Boy. And
Right.
so I kind of saw that, that would be work together good as a name. So I just picked Clear, and then I incorporated it elsewhere until like I started a business with computer services, and I called it like iPhone. I called it iClear Solutions, and then
Okay.
we called our studio and production stuff Clear Sky Productions, Clear Sky Studios. So it just kind of worked out that way. So
That song that you guys was listening to on the intro, Josh wrote that, and his brother uh, put the music to it.
yeah, he
Correct?
produced it. He did the recording. All I did was write the lyrics, show up in the studio, and spit, and he made it sound. That was one of the recordings that he spent more time. It's been kind of somewhat mixed and mastered. It's got a mastering compressor on it, so it sounds better than some of the other raw recordings that we did. So that's
That's
kind of my
amazing.
magnum opus. Plus, it's got a
Yeah.
good story
Yeah.
in it.
I love that. I love that song. Looking back over all you've been through, what do you think shaped you the most?
Oh, my rebellion, stubbornness, and desire to be mischievous and all that caused a lot of problems in my life, and it caused me to suffer a great deal, and also the people around me, it caused them to suffer as well. But try to having a transcendent viewpoint on all that. I think those things really made me who the struggles, the problems that I created in my own life, and my willingness, the Lord's desire to redeem me from that, and my willingness to be redeemed and to cooperate eventually.
Right.
Long story, you know, really made those things valuable in a way that they weren't before. I don't know, just the tough things that I went through. Largely, I try to, my side of the street clean. I look at the stuff that I did that's my responsibility. I don't look at what other people did or blame them.
Right.
But, I put myself through some things. There are some other things that got thrown at me too.
Right.
And all of those things, I feel like I could make it through anything, and
Right.
I feel like nothing's really as bad as it's, there are super bad things in life
Right.
that happens, but like, I don't know, just uh, the the it's ironic the negative things that wound up shaping a positive outcome, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
You know, they always say you don't know, you can't know love without hurt. You know,
Sure.
you can't know joy without pain.
Mm.
So I think every painful moment that in an addict's life, you know, it allows us to have the joyful moments once we get across the line, you know.
Mm.
A lot of people, I think, get stuck at the line because they, whether it's support, help, belief in themselves, you know what I mean? But I always say if you could just step over, you know, then all that pain and suffering can help you realize the joy and love that you have on the other side, you know? So I agree with you. Um, Let me see. Where we at? You got me lost. Okay, tell me a little bit about your childhood and what that looked like growing up with a parent struggling with alcoholism.
Really, my early childhood was idyllic. I mean, I had a mom and a dad that were in, a healthy relationship. We went to church, went to school. My mom was a part of the PTA, and she came in. My mom worked for Farm Bureau for a while, and she would come into the classroom to do presentations about agricultural things, and we would do field trips, and she was always very involved, and things were great. We had a good family. My mom didn't start drinking alcoholically until I was in my early teens. 12 or 13 is when that started to be a problem at home, and so at first it was sort of like I was a normal kid, and this is a weird situation going on. But also, not very long after, I started running with that kind of rougher crowd. I wouldn't say
Right.
it's a direct result of that.
Right.
I was a rebellious and mischievous. I like to cut up and act. I like to get in trouble. I like to do silly things, break stuff or whatever.
Right.
I was a little hellion. You know what I
Me
mean?
too. Yes,
And
I do.
so I hung out with other folks like me, and that's when I started, smoking cigarettes and smoking pot and drinking, and that's when, that's the beginning of when things got rough. But also, so me and my mom started drinking, in my teens, and I started, smoking and drinking and getting high, in a couple years later.
Right.
So that's when, my dad never gave up on me. My mom sort of was in an interesting position of, because my dad didn't really drink. He was a church guy. And because my mom would become difficult when she would drink, she would become, like a little honor. She'd get angry for no
Right.
reason, and it was that was tense at home because of that. And um, my dad was always trying to get me to straighten up and act right. He put me in military school, boarding school, well, not for long, but I mean, he was
Right.
trying anything that he could think of. I went and saw, a therapist, and they tried to trick me and lock me up into a rehab. And, I went to some guy and they put some kind of cap on my brain and said my alpha waves are out of whack. I mean, I think these dudes were kind of full of it, but hey, I don't know,
Right.
so uh, I started. I basically got arrested for the first time when I was 16, 16. And, so my childhood was perfect up to my teens. And then my mom, and that situation between the dynamic of the
Mm.
alcoholism in the
Yeah.
family, and then my own problems, made it a lot less idyllic. But I really credit my dad with staying together, because sometimes when people encounter a difficult relationship, they quit, they leave. My
Absolutely.
kids
That's
are
the way people do today.
My son's a jerk, my wife's drunk, you know what, I'm out of here. And
Right.
so to me, he's a saint, because he always loved us, he always told us what was right. Sometimes he was hard on us, but I think that he wanted, not super hard, but I mean, he was,
Yeah. He was trying to
strict and had
be
his way,
right.
and you're gonna do this or else.
Right.
And I wasn't trying to hear none of that. But he stayed consistent, and a lot of the seeds that he planted in me bore fruit later in life. And I credit a
Absolutely.
lot of the things that are me are really things that I got from my dad and other people around me. But a son is going to have the most, strongest effect on him by his father. So
Right. I agree with that. What kind of kid were you back then? What were your dreams before things started going wrong?
let's see. I loved movies when I was a kid. I saw everything.
Right.
The short answer is everything. But when I was a kid, I wanted to be a movie producer. And then I started skateboarding, so I was going to be a professional skateboarder. And then I
I
started
could see
riding dirt
already.
bikes, so I
Yeah.
was going to be a professional dirt biker. And then I started playing guitar, so I was going to start a band. And
When
then,
did you start playing
and
the guitar?
um, my dad bought a guitar for me when I was in second grade. That would have been like 9.
Wow.
But we just messed with it, and it was really for him. He said, "You want a guitar?" I think because he wanted to play Smoke on the Water. But we
Right.
had good times at the house. We would jam. We had a little Casio keyboard. We had that guitar. None of us knew how to play anything, but we just get in there and make music. It'd be me, my dad, and my brother. And I think that probably had something to do, with both me and my brother's
Right.
later, deeper involvement with music.
Yes.
And
I can see that.
so after the guitar playing thing, then I was really got into drugs. I was the kid at school with the legalized pot T-shirt and the cut off jeans and long hair, and I
Right.
was embracing that persona.
Right.
Like Beavis and Butthead were my heroes, and my mom asked me. I remember one time because it made my mom, despite all her faults, it made my mom mad. She said, "What do you want to be when you grow up? You need to, be responsible and do something with yourself." I said, "I want to be a drug dealer." So that then I can have all the drugs out.
Right.
That's what I thought how it works. So
And I bet she was like, oh.
yeah, despite she was drinking and all that,
Right.
she's like, she got mad at me. She said, don't say that.
Right. Yeah, I can see as a parent. I mean, even when you're doing
Yeah, she still
wrong, you
wanted what was
still
best for
want
me. She
absolutely.
still tried to tell me what was right.
Every parent, I think,
Yeah,
even when they're not every, but I would say the majority of
yeah,
parents, even when they're doing wrong, they still want what's right for their
yeah,
kid. You know,
yeah.
it just don't work that way sometimes.
Yep.
Kids are gonna do what they see, not what they hear.
Yeah.
You know. Did anyone ever try to step in and a teacher, a friend, a relative to help you or your brother?
My dad was that he was constantly, like I said, but also yeah, probably lots of people. I can remember teachers. I remember very distinctly, this is something I've told people a bunch of times. Teachers would tell me, and they would tell my parents, Josh, you're so smart. If you would just apply yourself, you would do well. And I thought that was just some cockamamie that they fed us to try
Right.
to, oh, do your homework or pay attention in class, none of which I was interested in doing. So, there were friends and, yeah, family members, my grandmother, my dad's mom, she would always try to pull for me, and they'd rescue me and probably spoil me to an extent that wasn't uh, uh, great because you know what I mean. I needed to experience massive failure and consequences to really get it right. And when you love someone, when it's your son, your grandson, or whatever, you don't want them to experience significant pain.
Right.
So, but yeah, there's lots of people along the way,
That
just
try to
little
help.
things, but
Right.
throughout God's Holy Spirit, was protecting me, and I was under the shelter of His wings. I didn't realize it. I didn't see it. It takes now for me to look back, but I realize,
So
uh,
many. Yeah.
something you probably don't know, and I'll just throw it out there real quick. Is I was hit by a car one time. I had robbed somebody, and they caught up with me, and I was running. I was so out of it. I was drinking. I was on Xanax, and I ran out in the road. This is like a regular road, like 45 miles an hour kind of speed limit. And I don't know what happened. I woke up in the hospital, and they're like, "You got hit by a car." And I'm like, "I got hit by a car?"
Oh my
And
God, I did
the
not know
my
that.
dad, when he told me about it, he said, "Josh, it was the craziest thing because when I was talking to the paramedic, he said." It's really weird that we're here to pick up a live person because usually when it's car versus pedestrian, they're usually dead.
Right.
So I mean, it blew me out my shoes, and I didn't have a broken bone. I got cut up a little bit, but I guess I just bounced. I don't know.
You was
I broke their windshield.
wow,
Yeah,
dude.
they got in touch with me afterwards. And they're like, we want to, get money for our the insurance company. And
Right.
I don't have any money. You barking up the wrong tree.
Shit, I was running. I robbed
Yeah.
somebody. What you think I'm gonna get?
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Uh, what was your relationship like with your brother before he passed?
Me and my brother were best friends. Really close. We were an inspiration to each other musically. Um, he thought I was really cool, and I thought he was really cool. And
Right.
I was the best man and spoke at his wedding. He was my best man and spoke at my wedding. We had a really good relationship, and you know, I was going through his laptop, which is now my laptop. I inherited a lot of stuff from him that was just left behind, and I was looking for that song because I
Right.
didn't have a good version of it, so I had to go into his files and all that, and it just really broke me down. Every time that I have to really go in and really think about and relive those moments and those memories. It's good. I cherish those wonderful moments that I had with my wonderful brother because he really was a wonderful guy. But it also just breaks my heart and makes me cry. It's very difficult. So I notice that sometimes I avoid those things because it just hurts so much to just
I get that.
to go back in, and it's a bittersweet thing. You know, I love him, I miss him, I'm mad at him for taking himself away. So it's a kind of a weird dichotomy to experience that. And I remember I've heard people talk about the complicated, you know, grief of suicide, and I didn't know what they're talking about till I experienced it myself, and I was like, okay, that's what they're talking about because it's almost like it's confusing. You don't know how to feel.
Right.
Yeah,
I get that because my dad was murdered. So,
yeah,
and then the the lady killed herself, and it's almost like when it's so sudden and so unexpected,
yeah,
you're always left with such unresolved. And I get what, like, it's I say it's like a pressure cooker. Like, you let a little bit of the emotions and feelings, like you have to go dive in and back to that life, and it's pss, 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 pss. But then if you ever let the lid off, it's like so uncontrollable, the emotions.
yeah.
You just, I mean, it's just hard to accept and like categorize, like they're gone. It's tough. I've been dealing, I mean, my dad's been gone 14 years now. And, um, if I let the lid off, I'll be bawling, like, crying just
Yeah.
all to pieces like I was 6 months after. So I don't know that you ever get over it. You just learn to deal with it better. You know what I mean? Like push it away or categorize it, or um, evaluate those emotions in like you say, a compressed little state, because it is sad. It does hurt.
Yeah.
So how how did losing your mom, then later your brother, affect you during the stage of your life you were in? Because you were in prison, right, when you lost your mom and your brother.
Yeah, I was at the beginning. I was still in the county jail, Broward County Jail, um, and my brother. They said, "Oh, you know," they called my name and said I had a visit, and it wasn't the normal visiting day for our dorm. And I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." So I went to the visitation room, and my brother and his wife were there. And I was like, "Oh, crazy! Hey, you
Right.
know, I don't know. Today's not my visitation day." And that's when my brother he said, "Josh, mom is gone." However, this was not a surprise because my mom had multiple health issues. She had had, I think, two strokes. She had had a condition before the strokes called esophageal varices, where I get, if I'm remembering correctly, that basically the continued consumption of alcohol wears through the lining of the esophagus and it allows blood to seep into your esophagus and your stomach, and basically you're bleeding internally into yourself. And so she was hospitalized for that. We thought that she was going to die, and then the strokes after that, she had some speech impairment, really not speaking impairment, but she couldn't say. She said, I know the word that I want to say, but I can't say it. I can't make my mouth say it. So it's like a
Right.
connection between memory and speech, and then
Right.
making the mouth cooperate with that, something like that. So all those things were, indicators of the problem. She had hurt herself one time, broke her hip. I think they needed to do an operation on her, but they said, hey, your liver is too compromised at this time for us to give you the antibiotics. So you're going to have to basically wait and sit around with a broken hip until you can dry out, and we can, you're good to go. So ongoing health issues. I begged my mom on multiple occasions. I spoke with her very specifically, directly, that she mattered to me, and I love her, and I want her to take care of herself and not die. The doctors are telling you if you keep drinking, you're going to die, and so that was not necessarily a surprise. I kind of saw that coming, uh, but it was very difficult. At the same time, of course, I was dealing with, my incarceration. I was still I was still in trial, going to court for the cases that were pending against me. and I was also going through a divorce with my wife. I was married right before I went to jail. I was married when I got locked up. I was married, and I got divorced while I was in the county jail, and that was incredibly painful too. Probably, I tell people, I said that was one of the most painful things I ever experienced. I don't know if it's because the thing with my mom was just an ongoing, it's the culmination of a long time thing, but when you have to get broken up with someone by the court system of the state officially
Right.
forever, you're over with. That was very painful. And then it was a couple years later when my brother told me about some of the symptoms he was experiencing that turned out to be basically small seizures as a result of a brain tumor that he had. He developed a brain tumor. They said, "Hey, you're probably going to die in the next few years, so good luck." And that's when his addiction. He was doing great. He worked at a mega church. He was newly married. He Things seemed pretty good. And
Right.
I think that he allowed his despair to take over, and that he was trying to use a substance to try to make him not feel hopeless or whatever. He was able to be, they did a biopsy and they were able to remove more than they thought they could. And so then they did chemo and radiation. And then, a year or two goes by of doing this treatment. They're like, hey, never mind, you're not going to die. But by
Right.
then he had already had developed he got stuck in a rut of alcoholism. He was just never able to extricate himself from that. And as a result of his surgery, which would cause him to have seizures, he took a medication that would control the seizures, but then he would drink, and it would basically, eliminate the effectiveness
Right.
of the drug, so he'd have seizures. And he bounced all over the country. He worked here and worked there, and he'd get a new job and show up to work, and he was kind of living that functional alcoholic lifestyle where you have your little nip before you go in the morning, and maybe one in the bathroom or whatever, and then he'd have a seizure at work because of the medication not working, and then he's flopping on the floor and people think he's dying. They call the ambulance, and it's just, hey, it's just another seizure for me, but so they terminate your employment
Right.
and say you got a medical disability, you can't work here, or we can't have you falling on the floor all the
Right.
time. That's not going to work. And so just pick up the pieces and start over again, over and over and over again. But so that was difficult to go through, even though it's self-created. But
Right.
so he would talk about, I'm hopeless. I just I don't want to live. I'm just going to jump off a bridge. But it always struck me as like a dramatic thing they would say. Because I mean, I can remember when I was a teenager, a high school
Right.
girl say, "Oh, I'm going to break up with you," and be like, "Oh, don't break up with me. I'm going to kill myself." I mean,
Right.
I didn't really mean it. But there were times during my addiction where I was in a very dark place where I thought I'd rather be dead than have to try to fix this or go through this,
Right.
or
Yeah.
I'm suffering so much, I'm so sad that I don't want to go on. But I never felt like I could do that. I don't know. I would be scared. Like
Right.
I don't know. I guess that's the best way to put it is I would be afraid to off myself because I don't know how to properly explain this. But
What when you
sorry,
found
I'm
out
going
that
on.
no, no, when you found out that he did jump off a bridge, were you just like flabbergasted, like, oh my God, he
Yeah,
was
I'll never forget. I was. It's kind of an interesting story. It's an interesting part of my story. I was on my jailbroken prison tablet using Facebook Messenger to make a call. I called my dad, just was going to chat. With a jailbroken tablet, you can if somebody has a phone, and basically everybody in prison has a phone. So they turn on their hotspot. I can connect my tablet, and prison issued tablet, but I've modified it so it'll do things it's not supposed to do. And so I can plug in headphones, and believe it or not, it had a mic pin in the headphone jack. All you had to do was take your headphones and just pull it out one click, and it turned one of your headphones into a mic. So I could call my dad, even though I didn't have a phone at that time, but I knew
right,
somebody who did, and so I can just call dad and chat or call whoever. Facebook and Messenger kept me in touch with family and friends in a way. People say, "Oh, Facebook and social media is bad, and it'll rot your brain, and it's all this," But I say, well, I'll tell you what, it allowed me to stay in touch with friends and family who I wouldn't have been able to stay in touch with in any other way.
right,
But I called my dad, and hey dad, how you doing? And he just told me what happened, and I was already I was living an active addiction behind bars. There's more. I sometimes I think there's more drugs in prison than there are on the street.
right,
And so I had a technological skill that made me valuable to people behind bars with money. I can work on phones, I can work on tablets, I know how to, I know how to do a lot of stuff. So I'm valuable. I got a lot of money, so I got enough money to live lavishly. And so I'm doing that, and I'm treating myself, or I think I'm treating myself.
Right.
Let me put it like that. But I was in a dark place already. But then when I found out that I lost my brother, and I had begged him, just like I begged my mom, I begged him. I said, "Please, you don't understand. I love you so much, Jacob. I really can't deal with this. I'm behind bars. I can't say goodbye to you. Please don't do anything to hurt yourself." So, I feel like I did as much as I could. I never let on to him that I was using because
Right.
I knew that he was having an addiction struggle, and I didn't want to enable him, like, "Hey, I'm doing it. You go ahead and do it too.
Right.
It's all good." I
Right.
felt like that would be wrong, so I kept my activities, to myself with regard to that. But um, it was just shell shock. I remember that, like, I would always get to the same place. Sometimes I'd go eat. A lot of times I didn't feel like it. I was doing a lot of drugs. I was in a place of darkness, and I remember I'd always get to, like, the window in front of the chow hall, and I'd always start crying there, and I couldn't figure out why. It was like it took that much of a walk between the dorm and the chow hall for me to think, be in my
Right.
thoughts by myself, to really percolate up. But it was incredibly difficult. I almost didn't make it. I went to medical one time for, like, a routine check, and they're like, they kept taking my blood pressure over and over again. Oh, there's something wrong with the machine. And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong with the machine. They said, "Sir, your blood pressure is dangerously low. You're very dehydrated. I wasn't really eating. I wasn't
Mm.
drinking water properly, and I was just living off drugs. And
Mm.
you know, I felt sick. I felt like there was a spiritual, supernatural, like grim reaper death presence around me. But I also felt in my body like sick, like I was,
Right. Your body was run down.
it was
Yeah.
about the end.
Right.
It was close. So, um, and finding out, I was already in a bad place, and
Right.
then finding out losing somebody that's close to you,
Your brother.
it's a miracle
Yeah.
that I survived that season, and somehow I did, and slowly but surely, consequences in life, and behind bar, I got in trouble for having phones and having drugs and all that kind of stuff behind bars, and it got worse and worse and worse. Like what was on is already hard enough, but I
Right.
was making it harder on myself by being a
Right.
bonehead.
Right.
And eventually I just wound up in the right situation that changed my mind. So
Yeah. I think I know what situation that was. Uh, so I don't. I think we kind of figured that one out. The lifestyle. So how did you end up in the lifestyle that led you to prison? Was it gradual or did it happen all at once? It was pretty gradual, wasn't
yeah, it was gradual. I started out with smoking pot and smoking cigarette. I really, I say the first time that I really, I'd sneak around and do something I wasn't supposed to do, and it had something to do with an addictive substance. It was cigarettes,
it?
and then
Right.
it was pot, and then it was alcohol, and then dropping acid with my friends, and I dibble dabbled with some other things here and there.
Right.
But then, let's see, when I was living in Georgia, I did. I just grew up in Florida, so I moved
Right.
up to Georgia, and I got on probation, and then I violated probation, which sent me to a probation detention center in Georgia, and I met some real country boys, and this is back in the '90s.
Right.
Some real speed freaks from out in the woods kind of cats,
Right.
and they were like, "You need to come hang out with us when you get out," and that's what I did, and so that started. I was started doing meth and started shooting it eventually, and then that experience right there is what really uh, made me very um, dependent on or fascinated with or really enjoyed just being as tore up as I could get.
Right.
So even if I didn't have harder drugs, I would drink as much as I could because I was just trying to get hammered. I just wanted
Right.
to get knocked all the way down, and I mean, I'm not a silly drunk. I mean, a lot of times people tell me, "Oh, I can't even tell you've been drinking," but like I put it down. I'm trying to get it done big time.
Right.
I ain't playing with it.
You ain't playing with it. I could see that.
And then,
Uh,
from there, cocaine, and because I moved back to South Florida, and so there wasn't meth was not really as much back, especially back then, 2000.
right.
It wasn't as prevalent, and so I just kind of jumped into whatever was available wherever I was at. It was just,
Right.
what's your drug of choice? More.
Right.
And so cocaine, and then living that kind of a lifestyle, and I was just drinking, and I tried to do everything all at once if I could, and I was just running around and being stupid, and I really, I guess I liked that life, and so I tried to chase. I was in my early 20s, and so I chased trying to have that. Well, actually, back and forth, because eventually I decided I wanted to try to be more normal. But I just every once in a while I'd mess around. I'd do
Right.
good for a couple months, and then I go out on the weekend. And but there was I developed this stupid love or desire or fascination with that kind of a thing, and I tried to pursue that. Basically, eventually the way I would describe it is that I tried to be 16 for the rest of my life,
Right.
and that's what wound up me getting locked up.
Right.
I was just trying to have fun, trying to do my thing.
Do you think? Yeah.
Yeah.
Differently than most people try to have fun.
Yeah. Well, I never did fit in. Even I'd be hanging out with the rough crowd, and they'd always, there's always something a little. I don't know what it. I praise God for that. I mean, it was something. He had his hand on me, had a mark on me to where I didn't. I was like, Cain, where he had that mark where he wasn't going to be allowed in nowhere. They kind of let you in a little bit, but not all the way. And I always felt some kind of way about it, but now I feel good about it because there was something in me, and I can't credit myself for it, that wanted righteousness. And even though I was trying to pursue unrighteousness, there was like a spark in there somewhere, and that eventually became a flame. So
that's all. Yeah. And most of us that do make it out, they always say, you were just different. You were different than other addicts or other people that I met during, that rough part of my life. I've had people reach out to me, and Sky too, and it's like maybe the ones of us that do make it out, there was something different, and that's why we should try to help others. Uh, Looking back, do you think you were trying to escape or fill a void when you got into all that? Like
yeah, that it's multifaceted. There's some escapism, there's some entertainment values, boredom. Especially when I was locked up, it's like you feel bad because you're locked up, you're bored because there's nothing to do, and you want something fascinating or fun or whatever. It's a distraction. So it's more complicated than that, because frequently, addiction is couched in terms of, you're trying to hide or escape from pain. And sometimes there are people that are not necessarily in the typical forms of pain, but they're just uh, trying to have a good time, trying to chase fun. But see, that's a form of pain, is because you can't have fun just you got to have something to add to it to make it fun. But that's this specifically when I'm addressing these things. I'm talking about someone who has an addiction. You know what I mean? Not everyone who enjoys euphorics, whatever they are. It doesn't mean that
there's
I'm
a
not.
difference. Yeah, there's a big difference.
I'm speaking about myself personally. First off, I'm speaking about me, not nobody else. But I'm also, that has to do with problem. Almost anything can become a problem. Some people people have porn problems, people have a gambling problem, people have anger problems, people have when we indulge our selfish self-will, and when we allow it to run riot, it can be a problem. It doesn't matter what flavor it comes in. It's like the ice cream shop. It's all ice cream. It comes in a bunch of different flavors, but it's all ice cream. So same idea.
I got you. I agree. I'm gonna ask you a couple more, then I'm gonna let you take a break.
All right.
And we'll do an intermission, and then we'll come back. Um, this is one that because I went to prison. You know that about me. And when I wrote this question down, I was wondering if you remember it, because I remember what I was thinking the day I got sentenced. So I'm asking you, do you remember what was going through your head the day of your sentencing?
I knew about it, what it was going to be, probably for a month or two ahead of
Me
time.
too.
So it was kind of a slow
Yeah.
thing, and but the thought that can not just that day, but continued to kind of haunt me for the next quite a few years. It was a long time before I really was able to kind of feel any even just okay. It was very dark for me at first, and I remember thinking, just like, I lost everything, it's all over, and that I don't want to call it suicidal, but that thing like, I don't want to do this. I don't think I can do this. I'm I've done maybe 3 years maximum leading up to
Right.
this. So thinking about that times five, and just, you know, everything's going to be gone. Everything's going to be different. I lost my job. I lost my house. I lost my wife. I lost my car. I lost everything that mattered to me was gone.
Right.
And it wasn't coming back, and there wasn't no saving it. It was going to be a super duper long time before I was even going to be able to start picking up the pieces of my life and do it again. Um, it just felt like, I kind of felt like it wasn't worth it. Like, I don't want to do this. I
Right.
used to walk to the chow hall and it'd be raining and light, sometimes lightning and thunder, and I'd be like, God, just zap me, bro, because I'm not trying to do this.
Right.
I don't want to do a
15
decade
years
and a
is
half in prison. No, sir.
that's a
I'd
long
rather be
time,
dead. And then
Josh.
I told you about getting hit by the car. I would think like, why, say, oh, it's a miracle. You got hit by a car and survived, and God saved you and all that. I'm like, He saved me from that to do this.
Right.
I was bitter, and me and him did talk for a long time. Me and him were I never hated him. I never cursed his name or whatever like that. But I didn't pick up my Bible. I didn't talk to him. I didn't, because I was, And I thought about the situation with myself. I thought about the situation with my mom. I thought about the situation with my brother. There's
Right.
other family members that had other things going on. I'm thinking about all these things. I'm like, how would you? I'm talking to God like, how would you let all this happen? You know?
Right. Right.
And you know what? I don't want to talk.
Right. Just stay away.
Basically,
I've been there several years. Losing my dad the way I did. I was just like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Sometimes when I look at Tallulah, I'm like, this would be his greatest joy. He said, I don't care if you're gay. I just want you to have me a little girl. And 50 years old having a little girl is crazy, but my dad had been dead 12 years at the time, almost 13. First thing I thought was, Dad, I had you a little girl. So uh, that anger, like that he was gone, it's just a process, I think, of like, blame somebody, keep it out of my thoughts and my mind. And because sometimes I think as a Christian, it brings resolution to things. You know what I mean? It's an active process of working on things. So sometimes it's easier just to say, stay away. I'm not ready to work on it.
yeah.
Last question, and then we're going to take an intermission. Prison in its own world. Prison is its own world. What was the hardest thing for you to adjust to?
Hmm. There's a lot of them, and I could go through a list of them. But the one thing that just pops into my mind when you ask the question is the fact that you can't build a life for yourself at all.
Right.
Everything that you have is temporary. Your job assignment is temporary. Your housing assignment is temporary. Your bunkmate's temporary. Your friends are temporary. Your whole situation is temporary. Not only that, but your small, meager amount of possessions that you're allowed to have, which can fit in essentially, I'd say a shoebox, but maybe it's like two shoeboxes.
Right.
But any of that can be taken from you at any moment. So, a lot of people that are incarcerated, they have important papers, pictures, mementos, things like that. And, you mess around and go to confinement, and you're lucky if you can get any of that. Because they're going to go through and be like, contraband, contraband. It could be papers. You're like, paper's not contraband. How is
Right.
that? And they'll just throw your stuff away because they don't care. Especially if you done did something that made somebody mad or
Right.
whatever. And it don't really got to be nothing that would have the police, they're kind of,
Right.
can be juvenile about things. So they feel
Right.
some kind of way, there go all the pictures of your dead mom.
Right.
And you ain't so not having anything, and then having, for my heart as a man, you know what I mean, I want to build something, I want to make something, I want to move forward, I want to make progress. After I started kind of having some clarity in my life,
Right.
whether that was on purpose or on accident, maybe I'm in a season, I'm in some place where really ain't no drugs or whatever like that. I stayed involved in, most of the time I stayed involved in positive activity. I played in the chapel band at almost every camp that I was at. I tutored GED for quite a few years. I played in a rec yard. I played in a bunch of different bands. And I would just try to do things. I took some classes. I would try to do things, and that would keep me positive and all that. But um, those things would inspire you to like, oh man, I can be somebody. Oh man, I can do
Right.
something. And then you realize You know, and then they tell you pack it up. You're moving somewhere else. Now you got to start all over again. You back to the bottom of the. You don't know anybody. You don't have a job. You don't have any friends. It's, you know, you start all over again. You know, every couple years, or sometimes it could be every couple months.
Right.
You know,
So it just
the
never
temporariness
yeah.
and the inability to even have something that resembles a normal life, where you have, you know, people, you have things, you have a location, you have those things that make kind of like the sphere of your life.
Right.
You don't have any of that.
Some
Or
security
if you
anyway.
do, you can't count on it, because that
Right.
friend is going to be gone next week.
Right.
You're going to be gone next week. Your stuff, that, you know, cool pair of shorts, you know, or boxers that you're not supposed to have, but you got them, that nice pair of socks. You know what I mean? Little things like
Right.
that. You know, police find them, they're going to take them from you. So you really don't have anything. It's just all temporary.
Right.
You know, but it does teach you a certain, I use the word transcendent type of mindset. If you realize, well, none of this, you have to adopt the concept that this stuff doesn't matter, because it can be taken from you at any moment. So then you realize, oh, none of this really matters. All these little, you know, material things, and what I expect and what I want, how I picture my life to be, this little sphere. We do need that, but you start to realize that you can't rely on those things for happiness and peace and security and joy. They have to find something else in some other way to achieve peace and happiness, without things, without people, without satisfaction with what you want. You have to find some other way.
Right. Yeah, because you don't control anything in prison. You know.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So, uh,
You
all
want to do the
right.
intermission?
Yeah, we're gonna take a little break for a second. Get a drink. Y'all go pee, and we'll be back.
Down by the bend where the pines grow thick, Hollers Creek whispers cold and quick. A still hum soft in the midnight air. Smoke curls up, nobody cares. The stars keep watch, the hills don't tell, where water turns to fire in an old tin well. Hollers Creek, water shine, burns like a secret, smooth as time. Pour it strong, it binds us tight. Friend to family, wrong to right. Hollers Creek, water shine. Jimmy came down from the holler last June with a mason jar and a fiddle tune. He said, take a sip, it'll set you free. Now his blood, not just company. The fire in the jar, it warms the soul, turns strangers into kinfolk. More precious than gold. Hollers Creek, water shine, burns like a secret, smooth as time. Pour it strong, it binds us tight. Friend to family, wrong to right. Hollers Creek, water shine. It ain't just a drink, it's a bond we make in the light of the moon for old time's sake. Through thick and thin, it'll see you through. When the world feels cold, it'll warm you too. Hollers Creek, water shine, burns like a secret, smooth as time. Pour it strong, it binds us tight. Friend or family, wrong to right. Hollers Creek, water shine.
All right, guys, we back. Did y'all enjoy that intermission? Did y'all use the bathroom? We're gonna give. I'm gonna look over here on TikTok just for a second. Tell y'all hello. Um, Miss Frida. Uh, hey Dylan. Hey guys. I just want y'all to know after the interview, we'll take some questions and stuff. Thank y'all for all the likes and the gifts and the shares. Please, love you, Holly. I love you too, buddy. Um, just got thank you, Mr. Jim, for hanging in here with us. I hope y'all are enjoying it. I told y'all this was going to be a great interview.
I see a
So,
comment from Robert. He said he had to sleep on the floor for about 3 months and is so happy to be released on probation. Yeah, that'll happen. They'll be so full.
yeah.
You'd be lucky if they give you a plastic thing they call a boat, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
park your mat on the floor in a boat, but it might be just on the floor. So
So
I hear
much
you, Robert.
over, yeah, so much overpopulation in jails. And a lot of it, man, is probation and parole. They'll revoke you for nothing,
Hmm.
and then they send you back. They pull you back out of your life when you're just trying to get adjusted and adapt to the world. Um, and there's somebody over you with the, like, oh, you can't mess up one time. And you're like, man, I'm just trying to get my feet. I might mess up. And you have that fear of that's people can't get out of that trap of the paper. You know what I
I ain't
mean?
never successfully finished probation. I've had it a bunch of times, so
Listen, I did one
I know
time.
what that's like.
I messed up a lot. I haven't been in trouble in 25. I was spent my 25th birthday in prison, and from 18 to 25, I was in and out. My dad said I was doing a life sentence on installment plan.
Yep,
Because
totally
I'd
a
get
thing.
out, I get out 6 months, 9 months, boom, go right back in. Get out, go
Yeah.
right back in. Until finally, I think I told you this. I was sitting on smoking at the prison, and this little old lady, she was 75, 80 years old, come up and was like, "Hey, can I have your short? Can I have your short?" You know, and I was like, "Here, let me just give you a cigarette," and
Right.
oh, thank you. And I was like, oh my God, she would stand beside people just to get a little cigarette because she had nobody.
Yeah.
She had been in and lost everybody and had gotten old while she was there.
Yep.
And I was like, this is not going to fucking be me.
Mm.
This is not going to be me.
No,
And
that's right.
so I decided right then, like, I don't know how, but I'm going to figure this out. I'm not going to do a life sentence on installment plan
How
anymore.
old were you then?
I was 25. I got out of prison when 26, 25, 26 years old, and that's
Praise the
the
Lord.
last time I've been in
It took me
trouble.
another 20 years after that to bang my head on the wall. So
Right. Well, it's just my chance, that I mean, like I still done stuff that could have got me there. I've been sober for about 13 years off drugs, and I had a really bad pill addiction
yeah.
for a very long time. That was the one addiction I could not stop. I did coke, meth, everything, you
Mm.
know what I mean? But when those pills got me, I got hurt. Doctor put me on pills, and it just about destroyed my life.
Mm.
Um, and then I woke up at 38 and was like,
Well, I'm
I
glad
don't want
that
to
you're
do
here, and
that.
I'm glad that you woke
Yeah.
up. I'm glad that you made it. Praise the Lord.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much, buddy. I heard you may have made some shine in prison. How did that come about? We
Well,
got to throw that in there.
I mentioned before that we are bored, and we have to pass the time somehow. So I was in a place where it was a little less strict. We could kind of get away with more. And I never forget, I got a recipe from this Puerto Rican guy. He could barely speak English. And he kind of laid it out for me, showed me what to do. And he gave me his recipe. And I used that. And, folks that had my wine, buck,
Right,
hooch, whatever you
right.
want to call it.
Me, yeah,
Mead,
whatever.
I get that'd be the technical term for what it is, mead, but we call it wine.
Right.
Um, it was successful. People liked it, and the recipe that he gave me. At that time, they sold Kool-Aid in a pouch. Kool-Aid has sugar in it, and
Right.
one of them kind of pouches of tropical punch Kool-Aid. So it would be, I can't remember the precise numbers, but um, I would use, I think about maybe it was 2 pouches for a gallon or something like that, and I think 100 ketchups. And we had these bags. They used to have this concentrated juice beverage, and it would come in these double lined plastic bags that had a pop top on them. And I really like cooking with these. It's the way that this guy taught me, and I really like using this method because the smell of a cook is a problem.
Right.
The authorities, if they smell it, they know what time it is. If you smell something that smells like fruit, you know somebody's cooking wine, and you just start go looking around, you're going to find
Right.
it. So what the system that he showed me is we drill a hole. It had a little pop top in it, and it had a nozzle for it to be used in its normal
Right.
use. We drill a hole in that pop top, and then we get the tubes out of the spray bottles and put two of those together. Take a piece of a pin to make like a joint, and we join it and we put it down. So it had like a long tube down into a usually use like a coffee bag, like a keefy
Right.
coffee bag, and we put some water and some bleach in there, and it would burp down into the water, and I guess the bleach would knock down the scent or whatever, so you can
Right.
control that. We put that in our locker. They have these kind of like canvas jackets with like a felt lining. So I put my cook bag inside of one of those jackets and folded up, made it look kind of so if you just open my locker, it would look like I just had a stack of folded up clothes, but
Right.
really that was a cook bag down inside there. And so it'd be tropical punch Kool-Aid, ketchup, and water. But my trick that I used that I liked, people would put bread in there because you know bread has yeast in it,
Yeast.
and so you
Right.
want to try to get a maximum amount of yeast in your batch as soon as possible. But but most times what people do is they just put bread in there and leave it. And there'll be the crust and all, and
Right.
that's and there ain't a whole lot of filtering going on. We're just gonna drink it straight. However it
Right.
comes out, that's how we're gonna
Right.
drink it. And so it'd have chunks all in it. It's kind of like drinking a milkshake instead of drinking a
Right.
beverage.
Right.
So it was a little gross. So I came up with a technique. I would use a keefy again, like a Ziploc coffee bag, and I'd take 2 pieces of bread and warm water, and I'd set them down in the bag. I wouldn't agitate them or mush them up or anything like that, and I'd let them sit there for a little while in the warm water, and then I'd pull the bread back out so that it got the yeast, it got some of the
Right.
content that I want without leaving behind all the guts,
Right.
if you will. And then and so these recipes I have to have measured amount, the proportions have to be
Right.
right. So I'd measure all my bags of water from that. So
Right.
I called it bread water,
Right.
but that seemed to give it a good kick. We'd start out now. A lot of times we'd start a germ first, be a soda bottle. It'd be like a piece of or 2 pieces of bread, get slightly damp, put a couple ketchups in there, and then put a little bit of sugar on it and let it sit in the window and get warm, but not too hot. Of course, you don't want to kill the yeast.
Right.
Not yet. No, well, not at all. Actually,
Right.
okay, we don't do any distilling
Right.
now. I heard stories. Oh yeah, people do what's called a stinger. They'll hook if they can get to a power source. They'll make and you can heat up water to make coffee or soups. You can
Right.
light the cigarette. If you can get to the power, you can charge your phone. So being
Right.
able to get to a wire somewhere is a good commodity. So I heard about people distilling, but that's a pretty complicated type setup, and
People
not
are
the kind of thing you can have
resilient.
laying around if the
Right.
cops are going to come by every so often, which they do.
Right.
So, but that was my technique. We start a germ there and then drop that. That way the batch would cook faster because obviously you want to have a yield as soon as possible. I don't want to
Right.
have to wait a week for this. I'd rather be at like 5 days or even faster if
Right.
possible. But so that was and we called it Red Rooster because of course because of the ketchup and the Kool-Aid, it would come out bright red. And I've seen people make it with all kinds of stuff. Don't ever use watermelon. I'm sorry, not watermelon. Root beer candy because
Okay.
the sweet goes away and all you get is left behind the kind of like the sarsaparilla or the root
Yeah.
taste.
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible wine. Never use root beer barrels, and never. At one time I didn't have bleach, so I used some dandruff shampoo as my chemical solution. I said, "Oh, that smells strong. It'll probably kill the smell." Well, the smell crept back through the
Oh
burp
yeah.
tube into the batch, and it tasted like Selsun Blue. So I had Selsun Blue flavored wine. Don't do this at home.
So most of the time you had Red Rooster.
Red
Sometimes you
Rooster.
had Selsun Blue.
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh God, what did that process of making that teach you about creativity and survival and just yourself? That you were curious,
I
like
was really fascinated with it because I was like, oh, you can, it was really, I remember it really being something at the time, not too long after, they started giving out the inmate tablets, and they had access to Gutenberg uh, press legacy books, books that are really old and they're
Right.
free. And so I think they missed this one because usually it's like an edited version of that collection of
Right.
old books. There was one that was in there that had a weird, because old books have weird titles. So there was one that was in there that was about distilling now, and it had recipes and everything. Now it's written in old English, so it's kind of
Right.
hard to follow the wording. And
Right.
the recipes are like these huge batches. So it's like 100
Right.
gallons, and I'm like trying to do the math and pare that
To
down.
a
And
gallon.
it was mainly about wine, and it talked about all the different like blush and rose and all these, and it was using like venting and distilling terminology that I wasn't very familiar with. But I thought it was cool. I really did plan. I was like, oh, when I get out, I'm gonna have me a bucket going at the house all the time and stuff like
Right.
that. But since my personal decision to not have drugs or alcohol as part of my life anymore, that's obviously not an option for me.
Right.
But I remember being very but it also taught me that like you can anything you want to do, you can do. There's probably opportunities for you to build and create things that you hadn't at
Right.
first realized, and all it takes is some moxie and some follow through and some trial and error. And if you enjoy working with your hands and creating
Yes.
something that there's an unlimited variety of things you can create, whether it's art, whether it's music, whether it's distilling things, cooking,
Right.
whatever, building.
Just got to get started.
You just got to get started.
You don't have to be perfect. You just got to get started.
Amen.
Absolutely. You were stabbed while you were inside. Could you share that and how you went forward after such a thing?
Yeah. First off, I want to say that I think it probably would be a common reaction to think, oh, you got stabbed and that scared you real bad, and that's what made you change your life. And I would say that that's not really accurate, because after I got patched up and I'm in confinement waiting to get transferred, which is what happens when you're stabbed and bloodied. The
Right.
police go, oh, you must have had a problem, so they put you in confinement. They just transfer you to another facility. They don't do an investigation. They don't care who stabbed you. Nobody cares. It happens 4 or 5 times a day, whatever. So, um, how it came about was, I think I mentioned, before I went to prison, I was really into technology. Being a part of music nowadays, you have to be into technology, and I was always into gizmos and gadgets. And right after I got the second iPhone, so that'd be the iPhone 3G. This would be 2009, and I wanted it to do something that it couldn't do out of the box. And I learned, oh, you could jailbreak it, you can hack it, and it will you can make it do things that it wouldn't ordinarily do. And that's how I got really fascinated with like modifying hardware and working with technology in that way. And so later on, when they introduced inmate tablets, shortly thereafter, inmates came up with a method to compromise the security on these tablets and install apps that they're not normally allowed to install, et cetera, et cetera. And so I took off, and I got me one. As soon as I found out they're available, I said, well, I got to have one of those. And
Right.
then I learned sort of how they work, and then I moved up through the ranks doing that and was pretty successful. I made a lot of money, and I prided myself on top-notch work. After a while, and when it started out, only people that were really technically proficient could really work on these jailbroke inmate tablets. Eventually, it became such a commodity that everybody could do it all the time. But I always prided myself on doing very high quality work and being able to do the things that the other guys couldn't do. And one of the things that I was doing sort of in the late period of my addiction was I was able to put Google Voice on people's tablets and connect them to the prison Wi-Fi so that they could send and receive text messages to the street on their inmate tablet while they're sitting in their rack on their bed. Count time
Right.
doesn't matter, because everybody's got a tablet, so the police don't know what you got is something that you're not supposed to have, and
Right.
you're sitting there telecommunicating to your people. So that was one of the things. That was one of my special products, and it was the reason I had. In order to provide this service, I have to have my own jailbroke tablet. And because I'm a salesman, in essence, everybody knows that I do that. I do repair services, I do upgrade services on your tablets. When something goes wrong, when you need to upgrade, come to me. Just make sure you bring your money with you. So eventually, the authorities were able to stop the software, hacks that we were applying to these tablets. They were able to eventually. It took them a while. It was surprisingly long amount of time. And I mean, we're on the prison Wi-Fi system, downloading movies and stuff like it.
Right.
It's just. I remember one day walking around the dorm and I saw this is when it was like at its peak. Everybody in the dorm had a tablet in their hand. Everybody's on the prison Wi-Fi. They're downloading movies. They're browsing the web. They're committing fraud. They're doing everything you could think of, and it's just wide open. I was like, wow, this is really something. This is there ain't no. I was gonna say this is like a movie, but there ain't no movie like this. It's crazy. But eventually they put a stop to that, and so these tablets became incredibly valuable. Their value started to go up, and I was a non-gang member, a white guy from Boca Raton, Florida. I'm not a tough guy. I'm not a ninja. I'm not a pushover. But at the same time, I'm not, for instance, I'm not a trained knife fighter. So eventually, some rough drug addict type guys. I don't want to use any bad disparaging comments because after this happened, I had a grudge about it for a while. But then I look at it in a different light now, and I'll tell you about that when I get to the end. But eventually, they realized, hey, here's Josh. He ain't got nobody watching his back. He ain't, whatever. Let's just step down on him. So one day I'm in my cell, I'm geeking around with something. I dropped my little box of tools and doodads. I'm on the ground, and I'm used to people coming over. There's always somebody coming knocking on. Hey, Josh, I need you to do this or do that. I'm outgoing or whatever. I'm friends with everybody, so I didn't think anything of it. I look up and there's two guys that I don't really know too well in my cell. And all of a sudden, bam! I just get stabbed in the arm. Boom! Whoa! Hey! Whoa! And I had a coat on, so I thought it was just a glancing blow, like I poked me through the fabric, but I didn't get cut or anything like that. And it's a jack move. I'm getting robbed. Give me the tablet. Okay, all right. So I ain't trying to die about this tablet. This guy's got a knife here. Already done stabbed me. The dude behind him's got a piece of a broomstick cut off. And he done got a light switch, a metal light switch off the wall, sharpened it, strapped it on the broomstick. He's got him a tomahawk like he's an Indian or something. I'm in the corner, unarmed. Even if I was armed, I'd be outnumbered. This was, and so I had to give it up. I'm like, man, I ain't trying to die about no plastic tablet. Go ahead. You know what I'm saying? But then I'm stabbed up, and the police are going to notice because there's blood all over the place. And well, that's what really got me is, I'm talking to the guy. I'm like, all right, yeah, get up, get that and get on out of here. And I look at the floor, and there's a big puddle of blood on the floor. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot of blood. I'm bleeding. I must be cut worse than I thought I was. Now it's in my arm, but I ain't never had nobody stab me anywhere before. So this is a whole new experience. So it wasn't that bad. It was just a flesh wound, basically. But, they take you in, they patch you up. And just like I said before, the standard procedure is they're going to put you in confinement. And you're going to wait for about a month or two. And they're going to transfer you somewhere else. And that's really where it began. I had been in confinement a bunch of times before that for various reasons. And one of those times I read a book from a guy, a Christian guy he used to be, drug dealer and all this kind of stuff out in Oklahoma. He went to prison, became a Christian. And those books are a dime a dozen. There's 100 books by a guy who was in prison and got saved. And I ain't taking nothing away from him, but it's kind of, it doesn't stand out from the crowd. I can't even remember the name of the book or the author, but he said something that I didn't apply then, and I did later at this time. This final time I'm sitting in confinement and I ain't got nothing to read. I'm a reader. I got to keep my mind occupied. I'm reading, whatever. I'm hyperactive. I got to do something. I can't just sit there and stare at the ceiling. So I didn't have no books. So I'm reading my word. I'm like, I haven't really cracked up my word and read it in years. I had been in prison for 14 years, just about at this point, and hadn't done a lot of Bible reading, but I didn't have anything else to read, so I picked it up and I started. And I had a roommate who was like, he was for real crazy. He also thought he was a rapper, so he'd get up about 5 a.m. and he'd start beating on the door, and he would just rap. He'd rap for a while, then he'd eat breakfast, and he'd get back on the door and beat just at the top of his lungs. And everybody else would say, shut up, what are you doing? Go to sleep. Because in confinement, you're trying to sleep. We ain't trying to, there's nothing to do. So this guy was slap plumb crazy. And then he'd sit there and he'd have a dialogue. He would talk for him, he would talk for his grandma, and he would talk for his cousin. He'd have three-way conversations, just him in the room. And it was difficult. He was really difficult. He was really honoring. He was crazy, and it was a hard thing. And so I just get my word, and I started talking to God, and I was like, Lord, just help me. Just help me make it through this season. I know I'm going to go somewhere else. Hurry up. Put me on the bus. Next thing smoking. Where you at? And I started remembering what I read in that book and what the guy wrote in that book that really became something that was a life-changing experience for me. Was he talked about having a worshipful and a reverential, a loving relationship with God, and worshiping him not just while the worship song is playing, but in any moment and every moment that you can. When you're talking to God, when you're praying, tell him that you love him. Think of something that he made that you're fascinated by. Me, I'm a nerd. I love science. I love astronomy. I love
Right.
particle physics. I eat those books for breakfast. And so I started, like, hey, the stars and atoms and black holes or universes or whatever, all these things are so cool. How did you make that? Why did you make it that way? And I started to kind of like picture God as a father to me, and I as the little son, and they're walking by the side of the lake or down the street in the city, and the son's asking the dad, "Why this? What's that? Explain that to me." "Oh, Dad, I love you. You're so cool." You know what I mean? And,
Right.
how a son adores his father. I started to try to approach my relationship to God like that, and it's like I kind of compare it to I kind of like left the door open a crack, and he pushed it the rest of the way open because that
Right.
my whole life I've been involved in the church. I grew up in a Christian household. I've always been a believer, but I define it as like an intellectual belief in the gospel message. I believed all that, but it wasn't something that was life transformative for me because I didn't have an intimate relationship with God. And so it wasn't about some elaborate formulation of doctrine or some magic trick or some spell or incantation or thing that I said the right way. It was that I became willing to have a one-on-one personal loving relationship with the creator, and I wasn't expecting anything. When I used to go to church, I'd see people, man, they call it, in Chain Gang, in the full gospel scenario, they call it catching the Holy Ghost. And
Right.
you go up and down the aisle, hallelujah, speaking in tongues and all that stuff. And I used to look at people like that and say, are they faking that? Or is there
Right.
something wrong with me? Because that's not happening to me,
Right.
right? And then once I started this intimate relationship with the Lord, that started to happen to me. Now, I don't go up and down the aisle with that, but like, I don't want to use the word magic, but it's like something magical happened in my heart and my life, and I realized, and I used to wonder if this was real, and then I found out that it is. And I know that that sounds crazy. I'm a very practical, pragmatic, logical. I'm very well educated when it comes to science. I know all of these things, and I've always been compelled that there's a creator, but there's always that I'm not experiencing
Right.
him like that. And I started to really experience a personal relationship with God, Holy Spirit living in my life, these epiphanies and moments and just revelations and new perspectives. And I also was inspired to start cutting away things out of my life. I wasn't planning on getting clean that day before I got stabbed. I was getting high. I was high then.
Right.
And then this all happened, and I started to have another thing that's very important is that I realized that I like myself better. People used to say, "Josh, you're such a great guy. If you would just stop doing drugs, you'd be." And I said, "Ah, that's just nice things that people say, right?" But then I started to realize, like, I kind of like myself. I kind of feel good, like I feel better. And really, the emotional roller coaster that I put myself on with drugs, because
Right.
it throws your brain chemistry out of
Yes.
whack. The bare minimum, your brain chemistry, bing, 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 and that started to catch up. I'm in my 40s. I'm 45 years old at that time, and I'm like, man, this is starting to wear down on me. I used to think I was having fun or enjoy this. When I realized, I said, I'm not enjoying this. I'm miserable. I spend all my money. I never got no money. I got to spend all my time on it. And even when I get it and think, oh, I'm going to have a good time now, I do it and be like, no, I'm not really. It wasn't that good. I didn't have enough. That guy blew my high. The police is here.
Right.
Whatever. You know what I mean? I always, and then I realized, not just that. That's just I realized that that's just smoke. It's emptiness. I thought I could grasp this thing and it would give me what I wanted, and as soon as I held on to it, it slipped through my fingers and it was gone. It wasn't ever there to begin
Right.
with. And all these things started to make sense. And the Lord also started to call me out of all forms of things that were my old self. He told me, Josh, you know what I mean? I got a plan for you. Josh, I want you to live a moral, righteous life according to my principles. You're going to have to give up this concept of being with whatever woman you want, whenever you want to be there. I want you to wait until I provide the person that's going to be your wife.
Right.
And that was not in my plans. That was I'm like, what? I mean,
Right.
I was married before I went to jail. Now I'm gonna get out, and I've been alone all this time. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm a natural normal man. I have the desires that a normal
Right.
person does, but he molded and shaped those things into something righteous instead of something worldly and selfish. He
Right.
showed me that there's something more and something bigger and something greater. And I'll tell you this: I used to think, I mean, if I really was walking a faith life like these friends of mine, and I was involved in a lot of church stuff, and I'd have to give up some of these things. I'm not going to have as much fun. It's going to be dreary. It's going to be dull. It's going to be boring. It's going to be lame or whatever. I mean, it's
Right.
retarded type of thinking. But um, I tell you what, I'm happier than I ever have been in my life. I'm joyful. I'm free. I feel good about myself. I go to work. I work hard. I'm responsible. I'm like, wow, man, I go to work. I pay my bills. I
Right.
ain't never paid my bill, man. As soon as I get a bill, I don't pay it, and then I kick me out, turn the electricity off, and all that. This is
Right.
Mr. Responsible. This is crazy.
That's awesome though, Josh.
It feels
And it
good,
feels
man.
good. I
Yeah.
know.
He
I'm
inspired me to want that, where I never wanted that before. I basically wanted to be a bonehead my whole life. And I was just
right.
like, whatever, I'll just kind of bounce my way around, I'll make it. And there was a really negative time in my life where it was like, well, my mom was an alcoholic, she died an alcoholic, my brother was an alcoholic, and my grandpa,
Right.
that's just what I am.
Right.
And hopefully I can maybe learn how to just kind of do like the functional addict thing, which is for me, some people can, but for me,
I couldn't do
no
it.
way. I'm
Yeah.
going off the rails. I'm going to crazy. I'm going to wind up dead or in jail. And I already wind up in jail. So the next stop is the grave.
Right. Yeah. And so, what would you say your biggest internal change with your faith was? Just believing in yourself, seeing that there's a different life, or
Knowing that my way is not the right way. Or
right.
that the old, just, I don't even know if I can know how to define it, but that what I thought I wanted and my way of doing things is not good and not well for me. And so I need to seek God. I need to seek His face. I need to seek His presence. I need to spend time with Him. It's a discipline, but the more I do it, the more the more He's present in my life. And it's a real, for anybody that thinks I'm crazy, I understand exactly what you're talking about. But all I can tell you is it's real. If you try what I'm doing, I know that you will have the same experience that you realize the creator of the universe, all this around you was made. It's not an accident. You're not an accident. And he wants to have a relationship with you. And I'm telling you that right now. I'm praying for you. And I want you to give it a shot today. Just talk to God. You don't have to hit your knees. You don't have to go to a special house. Just tell him exactly what's on your mind. And if you're mad at him, tell him I'm mad at you. If you're disappointed or feel like he's let you down, whatever, have an open, honest, and intimate conversation with him. But I think try to find some touch points too. Is there anything good in your life? Is there anything that you're grateful for? Have you looked at a tree or a bird or a whatever? Maybe
Right.
it's a spouse or a child or a parent, whatever. Is there something in your life that you love? Look at that and say, God, thank you for that. I love that. Tell me more. How is it that you've lined up these things just like this to put me here now and to see this and to have this, and praise the Lord. I don't know if that's making any sense, but that's the best I could do to explain it.
How do you stay grounded now? When the old memories or struggles, do you have times in your life, or did you when you first got out, that made you want to get high or revert back? And how do you stay grounded when that happens?
Man, that's a great question. I'm glad that you asked it. I hadn't even thought of this, but recently, but no. And it's a miracle because in my younger years, before this changed in my life, I used to have to, in
White
AA they
knuckle
call
grip
it
it.
white knuckling it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wanted to go drink and get high, and well, my wife doesn't want me to, and I got to go to work tomorrow and all that. But man, and it was an obsession. I had an obsession to get high, and I've heard people say this too, and I didn't know what they were talking about. It didn't really make sense or compute until I actually experienced it. But I have been freed of the obsession to get high and to drink. I don't struggle with any
That's
temptation.
awesome,
I
dude.
mean, I'm by myself. I got money in my pocket. I can go do whatever I want to do.
Right.
And any, sometimes thoughts will occur that are like, oh, and I say, I don't want to do that.
Right.
My life is, I got it going on. I'm
Right.
happy.
I'm
You know what I
proud of
mean?
myself.
And
Yeah.
I remember too how many times I would get that score, whatever it was, and I would do it, and then I wouldn't be happy. Now maybe that, there's probably some people listening, and maybe that's not happened yet, but that's a miracle. I'm grateful to God. Eventually, I realized like this ain't doing nothing for me anymore,
Right.
and it's just making me miserable. And so
I,
when a temptation or a thought ever occurs, I say, yeah, let me go do that so I can go be miserable
yeah.
and
And
have
I
no
know
money
exactly
and be
exactly what you mean.
unhappy and
Yeah.
be ashamed of myself too,
Because
because
there's so much shame
when you
that
got
comes
some
with it.
progress and you
Yeah.
got a track record, if you
Yes.
was to step back, you gonna feel bad about it. You're like,
Yeah.
dang, I blew it, bro.
Yeah.
Why I want to put myself through that?
That's
I don't
good,
want to
Josh.
feel ashamed of my behavior. I want to feel like I'm pursuing righteousness.
Right. What does forgiveness look for look what forgiveness look like what does forgiveness look like for you, and forgiving others and yourself. Like, do you have a hard time? I mean, do you struggle like forgiving Jacob? Did you just, struggle with that? Have you struggled with, because sometimes I'm like, Dad, if you would have just been doing what you were supposed to be doing, or had to listen to me, you wouldn't be gone right now. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
sometimes I have to catch myself. So I wonder, like, what forgiveness looks like for you and forgiving others and yourself.
Yeah, and definitely two parts to that. So let me see if I'll do other people first, because probably the most significant one is myself, and I'll get to that in a
Right,
minute. But yeah, especially with my brother. Like I said, me and him were so close, and I really, like we had plans, like, oh
right,
man, you're gonna be my drummer, and I'm gonna play guitar, and we're gonna have a band. He's got all the recording gear and the know-how. He was so good with recording and producing and engineering audio productions that, what I mean, I kind of just relied on him. So now, like when I want to record something, I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to do this. Jake, I just used to be like, hey, do this, and he'd be like, and it would
right,
happen. He
right.
was really good. So, being angry and disappointed and missing him for that, for I struggled with. I don't feel like I'm really in that phase anymore, but it was at first,
Right.
and really, lamenting his life. He was starting out life, and then he had this massive setback, and then he decided to get himself into a rut and never got out of it. And I say, you know, what could have his life have been like? And he deserved to experience these things. And I'll be driving past a beautiful sunset or trees or whatever, and I say, man, I wish you were here with me to see that. So sometimes, it's hard, but I think it's graduated, it's evolved from kind of like this love hate thing that I was
Mm-hmm.
experiencing, because I was very mad at him, because
Yes.
it was an incredibly selfish thing to do. But I have to think, both me and my dad think that he, was probably drinking at the time, which makes it easy to make unwise decisions.
Right.
Whatever, it doesn't have to be drinking; it could be anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if you're in that zone, you can make unwise decisions. And so I don't think that his normal natural self would have done that, and I think that
Right.
he was out of his normal natural mind, and he made an unfortunate decision that I don't think he really considered how it would affect those around him that loved him. Because if he did, he wouldn't have done it.
Right.
But I don't know. As for other folks, I don't. There's no grudges or unforgiveness that I hold for anyone. I made it a point. Like the guys, I told you, them guys that stabbed me at first. I was thinking, man, them guys came in and poked me with a sharp object. Man, what
Right.
if they hit me in my neck, or what if I was dead?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I held a grudge against them. And now I look at that scenario as God sent those two guys in there, or used those two guys, if you want. I don't know what the right theological correct way to describe it is, but that happened for a reason. And at
Yeah.
first I was mad at them dudes, and now I thank God for sending them dudes, because that's what happened. That step began a change in my life that changed everything, and I'm so happy. I'm glad I got stabbed. Praise the Lord,
Right.
because that's what it took.
That loneliness, that break
You,
from life in the prison that put you in that confinement gave you a moment to be bored and search for something to fill your time.
in the Bible, an angel of the Lord comes and wrestles with Jacob, and Jacob says, I'm not going to let you go till you bless me. And
Right.
the angel of the Lord throws Jacob's hip out of socket. He injures him. And so I kind of look at it like a situation like that. Like what it looked like on the surface was two guys, two crackheads basically robbing me. But
Right.
what it actually, in effect, was a messenger of the Lord. And I decided that I wasn't going to let go until he blessed me. And now here I am feeling fully blessed. And I
Yes.
do want to answer the other side of your question, though, because the person that I struggled with forgiveness for the longest was myself. I used to walk around every day in prison and say, I hate myself, I want to die. Literally, like, there's a song from Nirvana, Kurt
Yeah.
Cobain wrote
Yeah.
that it's called that. And I would think that. And it was kind of melodramatic. I feel like there was a portion of my life when I was insane with pain. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was hurting so bad. But for many, many years, I just was so disappointed and angry with myself for having created this situation in my life that was such a protracted period of difficulty and struggle and pain and all that. And from for my family members and loved ones and for myself, I was really mad at me. And every once in a while that pops up. I'll think about, what could have been. I'll think about things and people that I
Right.
lost, opportunities that I lost and squandered. and I say, and I, go down that rabbit trail a little bit, but it's not like it used to be where it was very painful and caustic to my soul to experience it. Now I look like, well, but look where I am today, and look at the testimony that I have.
Yes,
And
dude.
maybe it's all, not maybe, it is all. I decided to be a bonehead, and what the enemy intended for evil, God has changed for good.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. What was it like stepping out into the world again after 15 years?
Man, it was fantastic.
Were you like, damn? Well, I guess it was kind of a little different because you had got to mess around with tablets and stuff. Was there anything that when you stepped out, you were like, this wasn't here when I went in?
Yeah, I was at work release for 5 months, so I got to I sort of worked in the world. I
Right.
just basically stayed at a facility at night, but not exactly freedom. But I always stayed up to date with things, so sort of there wasn't a lot of surprise. People are like, "Oh, what's this gadget? I don't know how to work this."
Right.
Although there is some of that, but I think that's true for every. There's so many gadgets and new things every day now that all of us don't know how to work
Right.
or have what the heck is this? How do I work this? We do that all the time, but the self checkout line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was like new. I mean, they had them back then, but it was like I would avoid them because I'm like, I don't know how to work that thing.
Right.
I'm just gonna go to the cashier. I know how this works. Now
Right.
it's like, whoop, 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 and I'm out of here. I love that. I remember going in a Walmart and think. I remember being overwhelmed by. I'm like, this is the candy aisle. I'm like, I want all this. I don't want just one thing. I want, or at least I want one of each of these things.
Right.
And just, but none of it was bad. None of it was scary or intimidating because I felt I was walking with the Lord, and He's got me. It was all a very pleasant experience. It was like Disney World. I mean, I go,
Right.
oh, there's this ride. Let's go on that ride too. The good rides. I don't mean that
Right.
in a bad way, but it was awesome. You know what I mean?
That's
And I really feel like if I hadn't have had this life changing experience with Jesus Christ, that it would have been bad. I think about like today, just today, I was thinking I was at work and I was like, man, if I hadn't have stuck with the Lord's plan for my life, I would be maybe I'd be at work today, but I'd be in a bad mood. Or I'd be trying to think about when do I get off so I can go do my thing or whatever
Yeah.
like that. But I feel an intense satisfaction with my work and with my responsibility. I like where I'm at in life. I'm involved in ministry. I got friends and people that I love, and people that love me, and so everything was great. I was really, but it could go the whole other way. I've seen it.
Right.
I know. I stay in touch with people that are still behind bars and people that got out, and some of them pop up and do good, and some of them, where'd they go? I hope they're all right, and some of them I
Right.
know
Or not
they
all
ain't all
right.
right. So
Right. It's a choice. I mean, it is. Um, was there anything that shocked you or made you super emotional when you got out?
going to my mom and my brother's grave was difficult and still is. I want to go there. I know that they're gone, that those are just the spacesuits that their souls were riding in, but there's still a part of us that, this is the last place where I know they're at. They're here.
Right.
But it hurts to go because I cry every time. I say, well, I don't want to go up there. All I'm going to do is sit up there on the dang hillside and cry.
Right.
um,
Your brother's buried probably from here to that porch from my dad.
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Well, I'm
he
gonna have to
sure
go.
is.
Bring them all some flowers. I
There
put
you
some. I
go.
put some
It's hard.
glow.
It's hard for me to go too. I
Okay, so
should
you know what I'm
go.
talking about.
Yes, I should go more. And when I go there,
But really,
it
it's just for
just
you. And then when you
yeah,
go for you, you just wind up crying. So you're like, well,
yeah.
what's the point if I'm just gonna go for me and
And
upset
then I
myself?
feel guilty for not going because when I
Yeah.
go, yeah, it's a
But see, that's
cycle.
you're
Yeah,
thinking they're watching. They're hey, why ain't you been by? I
it's
told
a,
you I was gonna do that.
it's all right.
Why
That's
ain't you
why I
been
put the
by
medal
lately to
underneath.
visit me? But I tell myself they ain't there no more.
Right,
Praise
they're
the Lord.
with us.
They're
They're
in our
like
heart.
that we
My
carry
both
us.
my mom and my brother profess faith in Christ. I believe I'll see him again in the kingdom come.
There you go. What does your music and storytelling play a part into your healing now?
Absolutely. when I grew up playing guitar in the garage with my friend. I had a buddy. He wanted to be. He liked to play the leads. So he'd teach me the other parts so that he could sound cool while he played the leads. That's kind of that makes it. But he taught me how to play guitar, and I really he's a fantastic person. His name's Anthony Taines. I hope he's watching tonight. I don't know, but he taught me how to play guitar. He's patient with me and showed me some things, but I wasn't. I tried to take lessons at one point and didn't really stick with it, and never really learned the real ways to do things, and just kind of was a hobby of mine. So I was
Right.
decent at or whatever. But then being locked up and not having any opportunities to really do cool things, I said, man, I want to do this just for something to do, and I applied myself, and I was lucky to work with some really talented musicians who were just like they're not necessarily classically trained or whatever,
Right.
but they taught me some things. They knew some
Right.
things that I didn't know. I knew some things, and we worked together. And just as a result of me continuing to show up, I became a better musician as a result of that. And nowadays, like I make a video or something of me playing guitar, I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? Like I get a sense of satisfaction that I can come to a project, a piece of art, whatever you want to call it. And I'm not saying I'm the best or that I'm great, but I'm saying I enjoy being able to
Right.
reproduce a piece of music because it sounds good. It sounds the melody, the harmony, the tempo, whether it's loud and bright or whether it's soft and sweet. I'm proud of myself that I'm able to do because I love it. I've always loved music, and so to be able to be actively involved in making it, which I think is something that you can identify. Hey, there's something
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Hey, I can also make things cool. I can
Right.
appreciate other cool things that people make, and I can make cool things,
Yes.
and we can all get out here and be like, hey, check out these cool things,
Right.
and so that feels really good. So
In this community.
yeah, and I have a lot of I stay in touch with Facebook friends or whatever, friends from elementary school and middle school. And they be, oh man, I love seeing them get videos of you playing guitar. So it's kind of like, yeah, that guy from my hometown went to school with him. Look, he plays guitar. I guess some folks I might seem like a rock star or something like that. Not saying that I am, but
Right.
I enjoy the fact that I can just shoot something out there, and I don't really spend a lot of time producing them or practicing them. A lot of times I just hit record and go.
It's
Whatever
in the
happens is whatever
moment.
happens, and
Yes.
I can say, oh, I need to do another take. I need to do just a lot of times I enjoy sharing it with people. I like seeing their comments. I like getting questions about the gear and the tech, and
Right.
so that's something fun for me.
Keeps you interested, and it keeps you involved with other people
Yeah.
and meeting new people.
Yeah. I want to start a band. So if there's somebody in the Northeast Georgia area, that would be Eastern Tennessee, Western Carolinas, Northeast Georgia. I want to start a rock band, metal band. Could be a Christian metal band. I'm kind of interested in that. I'd like to do covers of popular worship songs, but with like a jin 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 kind of flair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. What message would you like for people to take away from your story?
That there is, in fact, hope. That there is something better and greater. That there's a real creator whose son died on the cross for you and loves you and wants to have a personal, loving relationship with you. And it's not like the um, cliches that we've heard all of our life. It's not religion, it's a relationship. And that it's something that I can't answer the questions for you, but there are answers and you need to seek them. You need to spend time finding them, and I want you to give it a try. I know that sounds weak, but I mean that's what I did. I gave it a try. I was like, okay, whatever. I'll just give it a little shot. Not trying to follow Jesus at all. That was not my plan.
Right.
And then I just okay, give me a little bit, and then boom. So if that's something that you are on the fence about, and you think, oh, I don't know, maybe it's real, maybe it's not. I'm testifying to you today that it is in fact real. This is a real and genuine thing, and that you can have that too. But also, furthermore, just that despite whatever circumstances have come about in your life, whether they're created by you, whether they're created by someone else, or some combination thereof, um, that there is hope and there is a way through. That there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But you have to light the match to get to that light at the end of the tunnel. You have to be willing to cup your hands around it when the wind blows, and you have to continue to take steps forward to get to the end of the tunnel. Because the end of the tunnel is not just going to come to you. You got to go to it.
There you go. That's good, Josh. What's next for Josh Clear? Any projects, goals, or anything you're excited about?
Lots of things. I'm looking for more opportunities with music.
Hmm.
I would like to try to recruit some more musicians at the ministry that I'm a part of. It's called Freedom Ministries Lighthouse. That's my church. It's also a men's recovery ministry. Right now, they're opening a women's part of it called Women of Worth, and that should be opening sometime in the new year. That's the ministry that I'm a part of. I'd like to see us get like a full on band of like a drummer, a bass player, some more singers. The guys at the lighthouse get up and sing with me, and I love that so much better because at first, I didn't kind of know what I was supposed to do, and they said, "Would you do some music for our worship service?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll get up here on the guitar on the stage with the guitar and sing," because like I'm more of a guitar player or a singer, but not a guitar player and a singer at the same time,
Right.
which is like twice as hard.
Right.
So it was tough. I can do it a little bit. I'm like, okay, I can sort of do that. And I had a volunteer that was singing with me for a while. I'm like, okay, it takes a little pressure off because like if
Right.
it's just you, if you blow a note on the guitar, you sing note wrong, and everybody hears it really prominently. If it's two of you, that's half as prominent. If there are more, it gets even better. So it's really a great thing making music with a band live is that it doesn't really matter if you make a couple mistakes
Right.
because nobody's going to hear it. People will be
Right.
like, "Oh man, I blew that note." I'm like, "Oh, I didn't hear that." So that I'm also ironically enough, I've been asked to start producing some kind of a video uh, podcast or blog or something like that for the Women of Worth. Ashley York, who's
Really?
my friend and is a part of the Freedom
I
Ministries
know Ashley.
Lighthouse,
Yeah.
she asked me if I'd be interested in doing that. I don't know if she knows, saw my stuff about working with you with video
Right.
production here.
Right.
But she said, "Would you be willing to do that?" I said, "Of course I'm always going to say when the bottom
Right.
when my Jesus people come to me and say, 'Hey man, will you help me do this?' I'm gonna be like, yes."
Right.
So that's what's on the agenda. Continuing to work. I have my second job is seasonal work at the boat
Right.
shop. Don't worry, I'm not getting too comfortable because that's over in December. And believe me, when you're out on the lake and it's like 50 and the wind, you going like full speed in the boat and the
Right.
wind's blowing, you're like,
This is fun in July, not
yeah,
so
I'm,
fun
I'm
in
second thinking
November,
this. How
December.
how far
Yeah.
away is the dock?
Uh, if your mom and brother could see you now, what would they say of who you've become?
I think from knowing me back then, if they just boop, could start seeing me now, they'd be like, "What the heck?
What happened?
Wow, Josh
Yes.
is really." And I think that they'd be proud of me and happy for me. And I guess too, a thought that occurs to me, I say, I think to myself, I was like, you guys could have done this too. You could have just decided to not do that because that's what I did. It wasn't nothing special about me, nothing
Right.
miraculous. I'm not less of a drug addict or an alcoholic than them. Probably worse.
Right.
So anybody can experience transformation and renewal, but I know that they would be happy for me and that they would ultimately be glad that I had decided to not destroy myself because that's where I was headed to destruction. And I'm sure that they would have a glad heart and a smile on their face to see me living this life of
Free.
supreme joy, freedom, and happiness,
Yeah.
peace, success, responsibility, all these things. I love all that.
Right.
And I know that they would
I
too.
know. I know they would too. All right. Last question. Lastly, Josh, if your younger self met you today, what do you think he'd say? And what would you have any words for him?
He'd probably say 6'7", 6'7". He'd be like lame. Um, and we would get along, but you know, he was in his own world, so it didn't really. I don't know if I would be able to have an impact on him because he was, he saw
Right.
this and oh yeah, that's great, yeah, whatever. Um, but I think if he got to see me now, and if I think I got to explain to him like, hey, these are the things that you're going to lose. This is the pain that you're going to experience. Trust me, it's really not worth it.
Right.
What you think is fun and enjoyable now is really just trivial. These are trivial pursuits.
Yeah. Especially when it's going to cost you 15 years of your life.
Yeah, and I would like to think that maybe I might be able to, if I could get in the time machine, the DeLorean, if I could go back there, maybe, you think about that sometimes,
Right.
but ultimately, I think, thinking about the past and what if and blah blah blah. That is the past is gone. What do they
Yes.
say that
Can't bring it back.
yesterday's gone? That's why it's called the past.
Yes.
Tomorrow's not promised. That's why it's called the future. And today's a gift. That's why it's called the present.
There you go. There you go. Right on. Can't get no more real than that.
Amen.
Well, guys, I hope y'all have enjoyed this interview with Josh. I know I have.
Hey, Dad.
Is Tim in?
Look.
Yay, Tim! Great. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I think it was a great interview. Was so excited about this, and I was like, I don't care. We're doing it tonight. This message needs to get out there. I know there's people out there that needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. I needed to hear it. So you've been listening to Raised on the Line, where real stories remind us that no matter how far we fall from grace, grace can still reach us. Joshua Butler's story from pain and prison to purpose and peace is living proof that redemption isn't just a word, it's a choice we make, one day at a time. If his story hit home for you today, share this episode with someone who might need to hear it, because you never know, your share could be the thing that brings someone back to the clear. You can follow Joshua's journey on Facebook and Instagram and keep up with more real, raw stories of survival and faith right here on Raised on the Line. I'm Holly Watts. Until next time, stay true, stay grounded, and remember, the line you were raised on does not have to be the one you stay on. Thank you, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Every jar starts the same way, with a spark of curiosity, a simple recipe, and a few good tools. At Still in the Clear, we're more than a supply shop. We're your one-stop home for everything a modern moonshiner needs. From quality grains and yeast to copper stills, hydrometers, and mash kits that make your first run a success. We teach you the craft in a clear, simple way that's built on real-world know-how. So fire up that still, pour yourself a taste, and join the thousands who shine with confidence. Visit stillintheclear.com.
Out in the shed where the shadows fall, copper pipes hum and the steel stands tall. Electric hum like a whispered sin. Shine on controller, let the magic begin. Shine on, steady and true, turning that mess to the devil's brew. Lord don't know, but the creek does flow. With a shine on controller, you're good to go.